What happens when a routine morning interview suddenly spirals into one of the most jaw-dropping moments in live television history? What unfolded wasn't just an awkward exchange or a clash of opinions. It was a total breakdown of on-air composure that would ultimately lead to one of the most shocking exits the industry has ever witnessed. This wasn't uncomfortable television. This was career-altering television. The tension that ignited between Savannah Guthrie and Reba McIntyre didn't just linger in the studio, it exploded far beyond it. And before we dive into the exact words that pushed Savannah to walk away from one of the most coveted seats in broadcasting, ask yourself this: how thin is the line between professionalism and provocation? Because what you're about to hear might completely change how you see morning television. The studio looked exactly as it always does. Bright lights, polished set, calm smiles carefully curated for millions of viewers at home. Savannah sat across from Reba, both women poised and camera-ready as the segment began. On the surface, it was supposed to be a relaxed conversation, celebrating Reba's latest projects. Nothing controversial, nothing risky. Or so it seemed. Savannah opened warmly, her voice smooth and familiar. She welcomed Reba and acknowledged her decades-long career, then posed what sounded like a harmless question. What's the secret to staying relevant in such a fast-changing industry? But right there, something shifted. Reba's smile tightened, just barely. Most viewers wouldn't have caught it, but the change in her eyes told a different story. She repeated the phrase slowly, almost tasting it. Staying relevant? Then she corrected it. To her, it wasn't about relevance, it was about authenticity. And those, she said, were not the same thing. Savannah laughed politely, but the edge was there now. She clarified, reframed, tried to smooth the moment. Reba's ability to remain a strong presence across music, acting, and television. How did she manage it all? Reba didn't hesitate. She said she stopped worrying about expectations a long time ago. She didn't chase trends. She didn't squeeze herself into someone else's box. She followed what felt honest, not what felt popular. There was a pause. Savannah shifted in her chair. She pushed back gently, suggesting that adaptation is necessary, that audiences change, times change, and evolution is part of survival. But Reba leaned forward, her gaze steady, her voice calm but firm. Different, she said, doesn't automatically mean better, and adapting doesn't mean erasing who you are. Now the room felt heavier. Reba continued, explaining that too many people today are focused on pleasing everyone, saying the right thing, being the right thing until they lose sight of who they really are. She said she'd never had that problem. That's when Savannah's professional mask cracked, just slightly. She challenged the idea, calling it oversimplified. People grow, she said. Perspectives change. Experiences shape us. Reba didn't back down. She drew a sharp line between growth and performance. Real growth, she said, doesn't come from ratings meetings or focus groups. And then, without raising her voice, she asked a question that stopped the studio cold. How authentic is it, she asked, to sit on television every morning reading words someone else wrote, pretending to care about topics you might not actually care about? Silence. You could almost hear the producers scrambling behind the scenes. Savannah's jaw tightened. She defended her work, saying she genuinely cared about every interview, every story, every issue covered on the show. Calling that into question, she said, was unfair. Reba looked at her calmly and asked, "Is it?" From Reba's perspective, morning television had drifted away from real conversation. It wasn't about honesty anymore. It was about safe moments, easy questions, polished smiles. Nobody challenged anyone. Nobody said anything real. Everything just looked pretty. Savannah fired back. Millions of people depended on the show for information, she said. Serious news, important issues. Maintaining professionalism didn't mean sacrificing authenticity. Reba almost laughed. Professionalism, she said. That's a nice way to put it. She called it something else. Playing it safe. Then she paused. And just as the tension reached a breaking point, Reba began to explain the one lesson her career had taught her. A lesson that would push this interview past the point of no return. The moments that truly matter, the ones people carry with them long after the cameras shut off, are the moments where someone takes a risk, where someone dares to say something honest, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it makes the room go quiet. And that's when Savannah pushed back. So what are you saying, Reba? Her voice was rising now, the smooth delivery cracking at the edges. That we should just say whatever we want without considering the consequences? Without thinking about our responsibility to the audience? Reba didn't miss a beat. Maybe your audience deserves more credit than you give them, she said firmly. Maybe they're capable of handling real conversations, real disagreements, real humanity. Not this sanitized version of communication where everyone nods, agrees, and never challenges anything. The tension snapped tighter. Savannah set her note cards down harder than necessary. You came on this show, Reba. No one forced you to be here. If you have such an issue with what we do, why agree to this interview at all? For a brief moment, Reba's expression softened, but her words stayed sharp. Because I hoped it would be different. I hoped we could have a real conversation instead of just going through the motions. But instead of engaging with what I'm actually saying, you're getting defensive. And that right there, that's the problem. Every camera in the studio kept rolling, but everyone knew this had gone far beyond a normal segment. I'm not being defensive, Savannah said, though her tone told a different story. I'm trying to understand what you actually want from this conversation because it feels like you walked in here with an agenda. Reba let out a short, incredulous laugh. An agenda? That's rich. I came here to promote my work, just like everyone else who sits in this chair, but I'm not going to pretend everything is perfect when it's not. And I'm not going to play along with questions that reduce 40 years of my career to how I stay relevant, like I'm some product that needs rebranding every few years. That's not what I meant, Savannah insisted, gesturing emphatically. It was a compliment. Longevity in this industry is hard, and I was acknowledging that. Reba raised an eyebrow. Savannah, honey, I know exactly what that question means. It's the question you ask when you think someone's past their prime, but you're too polite to say it outright. It implies I should be grateful just to still have a seat at the table. Savannah's face flushed. You're twisting my words. You're turning everything I say into an attack when I'm just trying to have a conversation. No, Reba corrected calmly. You're trying to control the conversation. There's a difference. You want neat answers. Clean sound bites, things that fit your narrative. But that's not who I am. I don't do scripted. I don't do fake. And you think I do? Savannah shot back, the last trace of composure gone. You think I'm fake? I've worked for years to get here. I've earned this seat, and I don't appreciate you acting like you're somehow more genuine than everyone else. Reba shook her head slowly. I never said I was above anyone. I'm just honest about what this is. This is entertainment. It's a performance. And that's fine, as long as we admit it. But when you start believing the performance, when you think reading prepared questions makes you a journalist, that's when there's a problem. The words landed like an explosion. Savannah opened her mouth, then stopped. When she finally spoke, her voice was low and dangerous. I am a journalist. I've covered wars. I've interviewed presidents. I've broken major stories. How dare you sit there and diminish what I do? I'm not diminishing your past, Reba replied unflinching. I'm questioning what you're doing now. Because what I see is a show that prioritizes comfort over truth. Entertainment over substance. You'd rather make people feel good than make them think. Make people think, Savannah repeated bitterly. Is that what you're doing right now? Because it looks to me like you're just being provocative for the sake of it. creating conflict where none is needed. Reba leaned in slightly. Maybe conflict is exactly what we need more of. Maybe we need more conflict, more disagreement, more real human interaction. Reba pressed on, instead of this polished, picture-perfect world where everyone smiles, nods, and pretends to agree. Life isn't comfortable, Savannah. It's messy, it's complicated, and it's full of people who don't see things the same way. Then she delivered the line that cut deepest. But you can't handle that, can you? You need everyone to play along. Savannah stood up abruptly. Her microphone shifted, nearly slipping from her lapel, and the sudden movement sent a ripple through the studio. You could feel every crew member freeze. You don't know anything about what I can or can't handle, Savannah snapped. You have no idea what this job is like. The pressure, the scrutiny, the constant criticism. You get to show up and say whatever you want because you're Reba McIntyre and people adore you no matter what. Some of us don't have that luxury. Reba stayed seated, calm, unreadable. So you're saying you can't be yourself because of your job? That you have to perform as someone you're not? Because if that's true, that sounds like a pretty miserable way to live. It's called professionalism, Savannah shot back. It's called responsibility. My words have weight. I can't just say whatever comes to mind without thinking about the consequences. Or maybe, Reba said slowly, it's called fear. Fear of what people will think. Fear of losing the perfect image. Fear of being human. That did it. Savannah's hands began to shake, her composure completely unraveling. You want human? You want real? Fine. I'm exhausted. I'm tired of pretending every morning is wonderful. I'm tired of smiling through interviews with people who look down on what I do. I'm tired of being judged by viewers, by critics, by guests who come on my show and insult me to my face while I'm expected to take it gracefully. The studio felt impossibly still. Then Reba asked something different, something softer. Then why do you do it? The question hung in the air. Savannah laughed bitterly. Because it's my job. Because I built my entire career around this. Because millions of people expect to see me every day. Because I've sacrificed everything to be here. Because I don't know who I am without this. The words shocked even her. She blinked as if realizing too late what she just admitted. No one moved. No one spoke. This was no longer television. This was a breakdown unfolding in real time. Reba stood slowly, deliberately. That's the saddest thing I've heard in a long time, and I think you know it. You've built your identity around a job, around an image, and now you're trapped inside it. That wasn't forced on you, Savannah. That was a choice. Get out, Savannah said quietly. Then louder. Get out of my studio. Reba didn't move right away. She looked at Savannah with an expression that wasn't quite pity, not quite concern. Something in between. Do you really want me to leave? Or do you want to finish this conversation like adults? There's nothing left to say, Savannah replied, her voice trembling. You've made your point. You think I'm fake? You think everything I do is meaningless? Congratulations. You've humiliated me on live television. That wasn't my intention, Reba said, and for the first time, her voice carried unmistakable sincerity. I wanted a real conversation. I wanted to cut through the nonsense and actually connect. But you're so armored, so protected by this professional shell, that you can't even see when someone's trying to reach you. Savannah wiped her eyes quickly, furious at herself for letting the emotion show. You don't get to do this. You don't get to attack me and then pretend you were helping. You don't know me. You don't know my life. You're right, Reba admitted. I don't. But I know what I see. I see someone drowning in expectations. Someone who forgot it's okay to just be a person. You don't have to be perfect all the time. Easy for you to say, Savannah fired back. You built a career on authenticity. That's your brand. For some of us, authenticity is a luxury we can't afford. One wrong word, one bad moment, and everything we've worked for disappears. Reba took a small step closer, her voice gentle but unyielding. And that's the prison you've built for yourself. You're so afraid of losing everything that you've already lost the most important thing of all. Yourself. Is that really the life you want? Is it really worth the cost? Savannah's shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of her almost all at once. Her voice softened. She admitted she didn't know anymore. There was a time when she loved this job, when she woke up excited to be there, excited to talk to people, excited to tell meaningful stories. But now she felt empty, like she was just going through the motions, like nothing she did actually mattered. It matters if it's real, Reba said quietly. It matters if you mean it. But if you're only performing, if you're just saying what you think you're supposed to say, then no, it doesn't matter. Not really, and deep down, you already know that. The silence that followed was heavy and unsettling. Crew members glanced at one another, unsure whether to cut to commercial or keep rolling. No one knew if this was still television, or something far more personal. Then Savannah looked straight at Reba. Tears streamed down her face, mascara smudged, every layer of polish stripped away. Her voice dropped to a whisper. She said she hated this. Hated what the job had turned her into. Hated that she couldn't remember the last time she said what she truly thought. Hated that even now, having a breakdown on live television, part of her was still calculating how it looked, what people would say, how it might affect the ratings. Reba's expression softened completely. Then stop, she said gently. Just stop. Walk away. Find something that makes you feel alive again. Life is too short to be miserable just to keep up appearances. Savannah shook her head weakly. She said she couldn't just walk away. This was everything. No, Reba replied firmly. This is just a job. It's not everything, not even close. Your family, your health, your happiness, your peace of mind. That's everything. This? She gestured around the studio. This is just noise? Beautiful, expensive, carefully produced noise, but noise all the same. Savannah slowly looked around the set, the cameras, the crew, the space that had been her second home for so many years. Something shifted in her expression, like a decision forming in real time. Then she reached up and unclipped her microphone. The small click echoed in the silence. "What are you doing?" Someone called from off-camera, panic rising in their voice. Savannah ignored them. She placed the microphone carefully on her chair and turned to face the camera. She said she needed to speak, not as a host, not as a journalist, but simply as Savannah. She explained that she'd come to work that morning expecting another routine day. Another show, another performance. But Reba was right. That's all it had been for a long time now. A performance. And she was tired of performing. Reba stood beside her, silent, present. Savannah continued, her voice growing steadier. She said she'd spent years trying to be everything everyone needed her to be. The perfect host, the dependable face of morning television. Somewhere along the way, she forgot how to just be herself. She forgot what real conversation felt like, what honesty felt like, what it meant to admit she was struggling. And that wasn't fair to the viewers. They deserved authenticity. They deserved something real. Her voice cracked as she admitted she didn't know if she could give them that anymore. Not here, not like this. Then she said the words no one was prepared to hear. Effective immediately, she was stepping down from the show. This would be her last broadcast. She acknowledged how dramatic it sounded, how overwhelming the moment was. But sometimes, she said, you need someone to hold up a mirror and show you who you've become. Sometimes you need someone who cares enough to tell you the truth, even when it hurts. Reba had done that for her. And even though she felt embarrassed, angry, and completely undone, she was grateful. Savannah turned to Reba, managing a small, sad smile. She thanked her for not letting her hide, for pushing back, for being real when she'd forgotten how. Reba nodded slowly. She told Savannah she was going to be okay, better than okay, that she would remember who she was again. And that was worth more than any title, any job, any level of success. Savannah took one final deep breath and looked into the camera. She said she didn't know what came next, but she knew she needed to find out who she was without a script, without the fear of saying the wrong thing, without the armor, just her. She thanked the audience for watching all these years, for their support, and she hoped they would understand why she needed to do this. Then she walked off the set. No farewell music, no commercial break, just silence. Reba stood alone beneath the bright studio lights. She looked at the camera, shook her head slightly, something like respect crossing her face, and said simply, "Well, I guess we're done here." And just like that, one of the most shocking moments in morning television history came to an end. So, what do you think really pushed Savannah to her breaking point? Was it Reba's words, or years of pressure finally boiling over? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, because we'll be covering all the fallout from this unforgettable moment.